All right, my name is Michael Butler. Now I'm using my dad's cell phone, so I don't know if you can see me or not. Anyway, today we're talking about how to use an OBD2 diagnostic scan tool. OBD2 is short for Onboard Diagnostics Generation 2. OBD or OBD1 is Onboard Diagnostics Generation 1. Okay? Now, the way this works is this little end right there has little needles in there. Okay? Those needles plug in to that computer. Okay? This diagnostic port. Okay? And as you see, there are needles right up in there too. Now, as it goes into that port, they have little wires that go into the computer's wiring harness, and little bits of data travel through the computer, and within less than a millisecond, it takes all this data and puts it into this computer. This is good to tell me if there's anything wrong with the engine, sensors, or sensor related. Now, sensor related means it's not an actual sensor like an intake manifold. The intake manifold itself does not have a sensor. All the intake is a bunch of runners and ports that allow air and water to transfer through it. So you won't ever see a sensor that says intake manifold broken. But you will see a sensor related, which means if the sensor has a intake leak, you might see something that says intake leak side A engine, or side 1, or cylinder 1. So it's not saying the intake is bad, it's saying that there's a leak around the intake. That's a sensor related problem. A sensor giving out is like an O2 sensor. If an O2 sensor goes bad, it'll say faulty O2 sensor. Bank 1 cylinder, no, like bank 1 engine, okay? So, sensor and sensor related are two different things, but this scan tool really helps you to identify, like the problems and that kind of stuff that is involved with it. Now, you take this end and you would plug it in there like that. Okay? Now remember, it's not all the way plugged in. See? When you plug it all the way in, that screen will come on and check, and it'll say linking up to, and it'll say the name of the computer. Now, unfortunately, I forgot to give one important thing. Can anybody guess what that is? The key. Okay, so I have to leave you right here for just 1 minute and go get the key. All right. Helpful. Yeah. Now, we're going to put the key in the ignition. Do not turn, you don't need to turn the engine on and start it. You can start it. On some engine applications, you might find that there's a diagnostics that says key on, engine off, key on, engine running. That's mainly a Ford application, but we'll talk about that some other time when we hook up to that Ford minivan over there. Anyway, when we plug this in, push it all the way in, and now you'll see how it says It's kind of hard to read with a camera, but it says P0403 catalyst system efficiency below threshold bank 2. And see how it even shows the red lights on, saying there's a problem in the emission system. Now, I'll talk to you about what that means in a minute. And see, if you push this button right here, it says O2/O2, which means there are more than one is an actual MIL and one's a pending MIL. Pending means that it's not considered a actual malfunction indicator light. It could possibly go away on its own, but it hasn't yet, so the computer is going to keep watching it. Now, if you push this DTC button again, it shows View Enhanced DTCs, View Vehicle Information, press DTC to exit. We're going to do View Enhanced DTCs, GM, Failed Since Cleared DTC. Okay, right here showing that we cleared the P0430 catalyst system below efficiency below threshold bank 2. We cleared it and it's come back on, so that tells us that it is an actual DTC. Or an actual MIL, malfunction indicator light. So now we know that the problem is not going to go away just by clearing itself. And if you look, you can see the check engine light's on too. Okay. So what this means right here, okay, P0430 catalyst system efficiency below threshold bank 2. What that's telling you is that on bank 2, bank 1 and bank 2 are left and right side of the engine. Bank 2 would be the passenger side on this van. Your application might be different. On this van, it's saying that somewhere in the emission system, from the exhaust headers to the back of the tailpipe, in between there could be a bad sensor. It could be a plugged up catalytic converter. It could be lots of things. It could be a heat riser valve if it's stuck. But the thing is, if something is jammed up or something is dirty and it's saying that the catalyst system is below what it should be, it's not at the right threshold. Now, I did some inspecting on this van and I found out one thing, that on this van I checked the O2 sensors with my computer, okay, my laptop. I watched the sensor data in live action. The sensor data was just fine. Now, this is a catalytic converter. Okay, that right there. That catalytic converter can sometimes get clogged up. And yes, you can simply fix it by putting some lacquer thinner in the gas tank and letting it clean itself out. Sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes these little catalytic converters, or baby cats on some models, they just get really nasty and the honeycombs get covered. And the only thing you can do is just replace it. Because you spend too much money trying to soap it up and blow it out. So depending on what your application, how old it is, and you know what kind of gas you use and that kind of stuff, it could be as simple as just cleaning it with some lacquer thinner. Now this is the O2 sensor. You can take the O2 sensor out and check it. Make sure that if it has carbon on it, do a nice good cleaning job. Use a voltmeter and make sure it has the right voltage and it can communicate with the engine, the engine control system. Sometimes it is just an O2 sensor that's bad, but sometimes it's the actual catalytic converter. And then sometimes it could be that big thing down there called the muffler. It just depends. Sometimes it can even be that little gasket right there. It could be a gasket. It could be, you see that? That's where a donut gasket sits. That keeps the engine quiet. What also keeps exhaust gas flowing at a constant stream the right way. If that gasket gives out, it could leak exhaust gas, and that can cause a light to come on. Make sure those are tight, and make sure that you don't have a bad donut gasket. If you do, replace it. This is also another O2 sensor. Find out how many sensors your car has. You might think it has one, and you might have two. So you're looking right at the problem and you didn't know it. But this is just a small, helpful repair tip that I thought people might like to see. But this is a 1997 Chevrolet Express 1500 Vortec V8 fuel injected van. And a lot of GM cars have the same setup, same testing procedures. I mean, just because one's a 95 and one's a 97, sometimes they're interchangeable. You could try and see if you have a car that has interchangeable parts and take one off and put it on the van and see if it's going to work. But this is just a small little repair video that I thought would be very useful for people who try and do things at home or do it yourselfer.